Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Today. Cheese.
I didn't get to watch him pick the route this time, so
it was a surprise.
This is a mystery to me. But I'm glad that we're taking cheese.
We're in Nevada. We're going to California along some eastern roads that we haven't seen yet.
We're definitely going back to Europe soon.
Yeah.
This is just too small.
Well, we got some fresh material coming up in this episode.
Yep. We'll,
Still haven't seen anything north of the California Bay Area either.
Yeah, we'll check that out. Oh, it's night driving again. Whoo, dogs. All right. Buddies, pals, my compatriots, truck buds, we have two basic subjects for you this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Basic subject number one.
Which one do you want to do first?
Well, I think that I want to do WrestleMania first, but I want you to take the lead in that conversation because your thoughts about it are going to be, I think, perforce more interesting than mine.
We watched WrestleMania just a couple days ago. Was it, in fact? It was 2 days ago.
It was on Sunday. Today's Tuesday.
Yes.
Uploaded on Friday. Party on Saturday.
I enjoyed WrestleMania. It was, by all accounts, a shitty WrestleMania, but
there's some disagreement about that. There are some people who say that it is merely a flawed WrestleMania.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody who says that it didn't have some good moments.
Of course, it definitely had good moments.
But
have there been WrestleManias without good moments?
There have been some really dire WrestleManias, but there's at least one good match. Usually,
I see.
It'd be kind of hard to construct one where that didn't happen.
I see. Well, okay. No one seemed to love this WrestleMania. Is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair to say.
But it was the first time I've ever intentionally watched wrestling. It's been established on this channel before that I've kind of caught wrestling in the background of Star Trek Voyager back when those things shared a network. But
SmackDown on UPN.
Yes, God. And I at the time I thought it was just grotesque machismo, it frightened me a little bit. But this was a good time. I enjoyed watching it a lot. It was pretty poor programming from an entertainment perspective. That's my judgment.
It was 4.5 hours long.
Yeah, it was. Everybody's intros were interminable. It was oh, cool, it's that guy, and this whole intro thing is pretty cool. And then we'd turn away from the TV, have a conversation about something else completely, look back at the TV, what felt like an hour later, and oh, he's still walking into the ring,
making his way downtown.
Yeah, but it was great art. Oh man, I tweeted.
I'm so pleased that this is the outcome.
I tweeted partway through this experience something which I stand by entirely, which was, if we believe that video games are art, then we must also accept that wrestling is art.
Ooh.
And it is there's a motif. There was a motif at play in this WrestleMania, which is that this is a world in need of a hero. It's a dire situation for all involved, from what I could tell. Everybody was exhausted, old men hurting themselves. In one case, that was the whole thing is that it's what's his name, Vince McMahon's son, Shane McMahon.
Yep.
His whole deal, I gather, is that he performs things much more dangerous than he should be, leaping off of a cage onto a table, just what was it, a 3-story drop almost?
Yeah.
And they're playing it for drama. His sons come out and dance with him before he does this, and then they show him being carried away on a stretcher, and the stretcher was certainly planned, but there's no way he didn't hurt himself in some way doing that. I mean, it would be a miracle if he came out of that A-OK. But everybody's just waiting for some new talent to show up. The old talent keeps showing up and giving God. Okay, what you said about wrestling the first time we talked about it on Treks was that the ideal wrestler is the consummate performer, right?
Right.
And what I've been thinking about is the impression that this WrestleMania created is that person, the person who's perfect at wrestling in every way, is so rare that you could go years and years without anybody showing up.
I'm nodding emphatically.
Yes.
might be being picked up on the mic just because of how creaky I am. But.
Because it's just clear that this world is like slowly crumbling to dust because of there's no such presence that like the need for that man is felt, or that woman. Like they seem to be trying genuinely trying to make room for a woman to fill those shoes, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen.
Well, I think we know there is a woman who could fill those shoes, but she's not on the main
Yes,
network.
yes, we'll talk about Stephanie McMahon a little.
I didn't mean Stephanie
Oh
McMahon.
no, she could be it though. That was perfect. Her thing
If
was
she was a
perfect.
wrestler, she's not a wrestler.
Maybe that's true. She could learn.
It's a little late for that.
I guess. Whatever. She was the star of the show, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree. It was the best moment. But
Which one do you mean? Of the two, the red one or the purple one? I don't remember their names.
anyway, go on ahead.
Oh,
What I was saying was that the woman who could potentially be that for this company is not on the main roster yet.
Right.
She's still in development.
Right. Okay. Well, but yeah, it's like we're waiting for the chosen one, and what I'm kind of wondering, what I've got on my mind at the moment is it true? Is it true that there's nobody out there clamoring at the gates who could do it? Like, is Spartacus outside? Just waiting for his moment, or is there truly no one? Like, is it just that the bookers are too strict? They're too attached to their storylines? I mean, yes, they are. But
Well, we had some discussions of this while we were watching. It was
Right.
like the storyline people think Roman Reigns is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Roman Reigns is clearly not the guy, but they are intent on making him the guy. And even somebody who is not versed in the storyline, someone like Josh, could immediately tell upon looking at a guy whether he was the guy or not.
Right.
Whether he had the charisma, whether he had the moves. Josh saw John Cena come out, and he was like, "That's probably could be the guy." And I was like, "He was the guy.
he was the guy.
He can't be the guy anymore."
Why can't he be the guy anymore? Did he get hurt?
He was injured, but he's not out of commission yet. It's just that
He wants to do other stuff.
he's too old.
Okay.
I mean, he's been the guy for 8 years.
He didn't look that old.
It's
He looked pretty able.
He's
But he's tired.
it's just that he has
the
been the guy
storylines
for
are
too
exhausted.
long. Exactly.
Okay.
His character sort of has nowhere to go at this point.
Fair enough.
And the smart fans hate him
Why is that?
because he's been the guy for 8 years. Mm-hmm. But the smart fans tend to hate the guy. It's sort of one of the perennial problems, which I will discuss when we circle around to that.
I can see why you'd get tired of the person that they're pushing the hardest, but you still need him around,
Yeah,
like to motivate everything else.
and it's like the best ones are the ones when all of those things align and everybody's behind the person and the development creatives behind the person. Once again, it's one of those once in a lifetime things.
Right.
You got Steve Austin, you got The Rock, you got the Heartbreak Kid, HBK, but and like one of the contenders for being the guy at this point, Dean Ambrose. Josh looked at him and was like, "That's clearly not the guy." I mean, the fact that he was being tossed around by Brock Lesnar didn't help, but also that's clearly not the guy.
He doesn't look right.
Right?
He makes.
You're with Vince on this one because a thing that people complain about is it's all about the look.
Right.
For Vince. Vince likes big, strong-looking guys, but it is kind of important.
It's important. It is important. It's not the whole thing.
And Josh was looking at Bray Wyatt facing off The Rock, and Josh was like, and I was like, The Rock is going to make him look terrible because The Rock can't put anybody over. The Rock always makes people look terrible just by being in a room with
I don't
them.
even remember that wrestling match, to be honest.
It wasn't a wrestling match.
Oh,
you remember The Rock came out, set fire to his own name?
Yeah, I
And
remember
then-
that.
and-
I remember The
extreme-
Rock's speech. The Rock's speech was
Yeah.
great, and his little speech to Bray Wyatt was a little awkward.
And then, but it's like... in
And
Bray-
I remember. And then the what are they called? The guys who had the Saiyan outfits, like they pulled the.
That was a completely different
Oh,
part
okay.
of the. But anyway, Bray Wyatt's another one of those guys who might have the full package, but you can just look at him in his Hawaiian shirt and tiny little trilby hat, and just be like, no.
Yeah.
Now is that his gimmick that's holding him back, or is it just that he doesn't have that spark?
I didn't see him do any wrestling, and I didn't see him try to hold his own against anybody other than The Rock, against whom he would have stood no chance. So
In the battle of charisma.
right.
But yeah, there is something that is just sort of inchoate and innate about who will be the next big hero.
there's a genuinely Campbellian aspect to it, because it can't just be any mild-mannered anybody. It needs to be a person with a destiny.
Yeah, and people have been, and it's the destiny of Roman Reigns that the writers have.
Right.
They call him The Rock's cousin, which he is not. They say that this is the dawn of the Roman Empire, that they're building a dynasty. On the Raw after WrestleMania, the angle they chose to go with him was like, he's not a good guy, he's not a bad guy, he's just the guy, and you'd better get used to him.
Okay, I have heard in the past that the cardinal rule of professional wrestling is give the people what they want. That can be misleading. I need to qualify that a little bit, because sometimes what the people want is to hate someone a lot. They don't want the good guy to win all the time.
Yeah.
But but it seems like what's happening is that there's a writer's room here who are overly attached to their dreary ass storyline, which isn't what I expected in the world of professional wrestling.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that.
Yeah.
The business is slightly different for the WWE than it is for a smaller promotion.
Mm-hmm.
A smaller promotion, the be-all and end-all are the audience that's in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the WWE is trying to win back the 2 million people, I think, something like that, who used to watch wrestling in the 90s and who don't anymore.
They're trying to win those people back.
Yeah. And they're trying
That doesn't seem wise.
That's where their money comes from. And but in a larger sense, they're trying to cater to a TV audience. And the TV audience, they have decided, is completely different from the audience that actually shows up at their shows. Because the people who show up at their shows these days are the hardcore fans. And the hardcore fans are nerds.
Mm-hmm.
And WWE is not interested in marketing to nerds. They're not interested in marketing to the people who know a lot about wrestling. They're not interested in marketing about the people who have smartened themselves up and are going to boo the faces and cheer the heels. This has been a phenomenon forever, right? Back in the old days, crowds would be like that in big cities. There are cities that were renowned for being smarter than other cities. And so you wouldn't book based on what the crowds were doing in those cities. You would book based on what the crowds are doing in Peoria, Illinois, or what have you. The problem is that they seem to be convinced that the crowds that show up to their things do not in any way, shape, or form.
I just want to interrupt briefly to say that Pioche is a lovely little town.
It is. It's delightful. They're convinced that the crowds that show up at their events do not in any way, shape, or form reflect the television viewing audience.
Uh-huh.
So they are trying to give the TV audience what they want, while the crowd that showed up, the nerdy crowd, the crowd that they don't want, is booing the house down.
Right. So what they think the people want are indirectly what they think the people want are loathsome crowds that will always seem to hate what's happening.
What?
Well, if that's their strategy to market to the people who aren't in the room, the room is always going to suck.
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean, we have, this is the filthy casuals thing in video games, right?
Sure.
Is who are AAA game makers making their games for, right?
Sure, but
I guess not all of the time. So Vince throws a bone to the crowd, sometimes. But there does not seem to be at this point anybody who the crowd likes that he's willing to go for.
And he's not giving the TV audience what they want either. From what I can tell, there's a thirst for irony in the TV audience, which the show isn't prepared to feed.
We only know nerds, of course.
Well, yes, but I've never. Okay, I mean, in other parts of the country, probably there's people who consume wrestling in a different way, but literally everything I've ever seen of wrestling fandom has had an ironic element to it, and
He's not marketing to the fandom.
Who is he marketing to?
Filthy casuals.
He's marketing to filthy casuals. I see. And the filthy casuals are people who might even believe that wrestling is real.
I mean, a lot of the filthy casuals are 8-year-olds, and so yes.
Oh my. Well, this is a terrible strategy. That's all I can say about that. It's never going to work. I mean, I believe in it's the video game analogy is misleading here, I think, because for a few reasons. One of which is that my controller is busted. Hold on. We're having technical problems. My cable is bad. I think we're good. Okay. Oh, we're not good.
Oh, Jesus.
Just a moment, everybody.
Seizure.
And we're back.
Well, we get to linger on Martin's Pub, which is kind of wonderful.
Yeah, it's a nice little.
Yeah,
let me get a quick. Where is the
This
pub?
is incredibly.
Is that little
picturesque.
building over there where the gas station
Look
is?
to
The
the
pub?
left. There it is.
I guess that is Martin's Pub.
That's Martin's Pub.
It's like an old tavern. An
That's
old
a
West tavern.
condo. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I guess that's Martin's Pub, though.
Whatever.
You should probably
Oops.
stay in your lane.
Yeah. Where were we?
Oh yeah, we were talking.
We're talking about filthy casuals.
We were talking
the
about
video
filthy
game
casuals.
analogy.
Yeah, but I'm convinced that if wrestling has ever done anything right, it has been by accident.
Uh huh.
The best things in wrestling have been created by the people who are doing it themselves.
Sure.
The problem with Roman Reigns is that he doesn't have a personality to speak of. The people who have been very, very successful in wrestling are the people who have had a vision for their own character and have been able to convince the writers to let them be that.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes they do that by playing politics, But it is that kind of idiosyncrasy that ends up carrying the day. So I think but anyway, yeah.
It does seem to me, though, that the moments during the night that had intentionally or unintentionally an element of irony were the ones that got the biggest reactions from the crowd.
Such as?
Stephanie McMahon's introduction.
Oh.
Which I don't know if it's what she meant to do, but it read beautifully as the evil overlord of the WWE, like the boss's daughter, saying like, "We'll never give you what you want again." We're here to torture you. We're gonna make this as miserable as we can, and we're gonna do it on purpose, and you're gonna eat it up.
Yep.
And that got a huge reaction from the crowd, and it was really fun to watch.
Because there was truth in it.
Yeah.
And she was playing it up to high heaven while wearing her evil empress costume.
Right.
It was so good.
It was great. And just like when I say irony, like partly what I mean is, tonal irony, hipster irony, as you might call it. But I also just mean a little bit of dramatic irony,
Yeah.
Like there's none of that. And that's a basic storytelling tool. And they don't seem to have a grasp on it.
But it arrives sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's like has always been one of my favorite things about wrestling is that it is such a mess that amazing things do happen sometimes,
right? Because
they don't have complete control over what's going on.
Maybe it would be less beautiful if it was intentional.
I think that's almost certainly correct.
But that's always true. The best art is that which is unintentionally great.
Yeah. So my favorite, in case you watch it, like my favorite moments of the night, my least, like things that I remember from the night particularly, I'm very sad that they're continuing to bury Bray Wyatt. And I was very excited about, I think the women's match was great.
The Saiyan costumes were great.
Yeah. The New Day in their Saiyan costumes, that was a highlight.
Yeah.
And tubby Steve Austin stunnering people was a joy of a particular kind.
I got to see the sock puppet that you've mentioned on Trucks.
Mr. Foley whipped out Mr. Sacco, and woo.
We're in Fighter Land again.
Yeah. And we're near Area 51. I wonder if there's a flying saucer Easter egg in this game.
I bet if we look behind us, we'll see that exact same fighter jet do the same thing. That's what I noticed the first time. It's a nice straight road, so I can do this. I need to turn not left, but right. Oh, fuck. Driving backwards. I don't see the jet. Oh, well.
Oh, well. You try to prove your point. But yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can see how if you're invested in this, that would have been a depressing thing to watch. Jay, who watches wrestling, seemed really down after WrestleMania, but I had a good time. I'm glad I watched it, and I don't think I'd tune in for the weekly show, but I might happily tune in next year.
Sure, indeed. Or, well, the next thing that I'll be watching is another pay-per-view in a month, so perhaps we could watch it.
Yeah, maybe. But
I wouldn't be shocked if you decided not to.
We'll see. you know,
For those of you out there who follow this, my favorite match of the entire weekend was Asuka versus Bayley on NXT.
is that an actual UFO? No, that's a plane doing loops.
Yep.
Interesting.
And American Alpha versus the Revival on NXT was great, and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn was really great, and all of the best matches happened on NXT because we didn't get to see the full ladder match because we were having network problems, which sucks. But yeah, so there you go. Josh didn't get to see Kevin Owens do any actual wrestling, which is a shame because that's one of my favorite things, and that was one of the things that I was going to point out. Be like, this is a man who knows how to use his personality in the ring.
Also, Vince McMahon did not show up.
And he didn't get to see any Vince.
Oh, another thing that I thought was interesting, though, was the other guy whose face I had actually always thought was Vince McMahon's. The guy who was managing Brock Lesnar.
Paul Heyman?
Paul Hammond.
Heyman.
Paul Heyman. Who's Paul Hammond? That's a familiar name. Whatever.
You're not thinking of Richard Hammond, are you?
I don't know. Maybe not. But anyway, this guy, Isaac, I think, had explained this, but to see it in action was something. This guy used to run the competitor to the WWE.
A competitor, but yeah.
He used to run a competitor to the WWE. Mm-hmm. Probably for him, he wanted to be the competitor to the WWE, right?
Yeah, that was never going to happen.
But... Sure. But, you know, he doesn't look like a smart man.
He's a pretty smart man.
He doesn't look like an unambitious man. How about that?
All right.
You know, he was good. He played well on stage, but he now works for the WWE, and he doesn't work in the business. He works as a character.
Yep.
That Vince McMahon has dominated this person so completely that he not only acquired this person, he turned him into a fiction.
Yeah. Vince did that to his actual competitor, also Eric Bischoff in WCW. Although Bischoff didn't last nearly as long because he's not nearly as good an in-ring or an on-screen performer as Heyman is.
That's a scary thing.
It's the thing about being the monopoly, you know. If you want to be like paid the big bucks and to get on TV, WWE is really the only serious game in town. The other competitor who has TV is kind of a running joke.
But the structure of that, you know, the method of domination.
Well, you know, Heyman, it's hard to feel bad for Heyman because he's an operator and always has been.
Sure.
And he owes a lot of people a lot of money from the ECW days. Heyman and Vince had a relationship even when Heyman was running ECW. They would people would show up at each other. Wrestlers from each show would show up at the other promotion, and they would do like weird cross-promotional things because ECW was so far away from being a credible threat to the WWF. So it's not quite as clear.
How well does Vince take care of his people? Because there were moments when like the Undertaker was on screen, and I'm just wondering and his nose is running and he looks exhausted. He turns into a tomato.
Yeah.
And like there are bits where he just seemed to shake his head in dejection. And like it's like is this man enslaved to the business?
I mean, that was part of the storytelling of the match. Like the background of the match is that Vince is making Taker do this because Taker is Vince's bitch. Was what Vince said, which is one of those weird like half true, half not things because Taker is the consummate company man. He's been more loyal to the WWF for longer than pretty much anybody else.
All right, but
and so
like, do these people get paid enough that they can retire comfortably?
I think Taker is probably in good shape. You know, not everybody does. Like there are plenty of. The thing is that like there are plenty of stories of people who used to work for the WWE and are now like, you know, really in really, really bad way or dead. A lot of them are dead. Part of that is because there's a lot of drugs,
right?
Or there was a lot of drugs, and you know, part of that is because of racism. Like a lot of the really bad cases are black wrestlers who were paid a fraction of what white wrestlers were paid back in the day, and then weren't given anything when they were fired because he could get away with it.
Yeah.
Again, he's a carny. If he can get away with fucking whoever, he will. But the WWE's has tried to clean up its act, and I think that the wrestlers who are wrestling for them now are probably going to end up in being better shape.
Okay.
But, you know.
Well, that's nice then.
The strategy, I mean, but
So he just
it's not like any of them are getting a pension.
Unreasonably loyal. He wreaks unreasonable loyalty out of these people then. Like, so much that he gets his son to injure himself for the cameras.
Yeah. He's a very charismatic human being, is Vince. People who should have reason
It's a shame that he wasn't on the show. I would have liked to have seen him in action.
Some people who have reason to despise him, like Mick Foley, love him. And some people have reason to despise him, hate him. You know? So.
Very interesting.
Even people who hate him will describe him as a genius.
It continues to be interesting the way the fiction and the reality blend, which I guess is the main draw in a way.
Yeah.
The commentating was exhausting.
It's such a bad time for commentating.
It may be too much of the structural hipster irony that the filthy casuals wouldn't want, but I would love it if they would at least sometimes comment on botches, like comment on the performance instead of the fiction, if you see what I mean.
You know, it's done sometimes with dog whistling.
What's that? How does that take place?
Oh, I don't think he got all of that. Maybe he didn't quite get all of that. Or, you know, in really bad cases, they'll be like, well, that was an interesting maneuver. Not sure what he was attempting there.
Yeah.
It's generally bad form to do that. You're kind of breaking kayfabe by doing that.
I get it, but I don't know. It would be interesting to see it sometimes.
The major problem,
a bit more of a thing.
The major problem with this commentary team is they didn't call the action at all.
Right.
Like the real action or the fake action. I don't know if you were paying attention to that, but they were mostly talking about the storylines. And not actually talking about what was going on in the ring. And a wrestling commentator's job is to highlight the ways in which the physical storytelling is helping the other storytelling.
Okay.
Right?
I can see how that would be helpful.
You know, so it's like if the wrestlers are choosing to wrestle in a particular way in order for the storyline, the commentators should notice, you know, and explain it to you.
Right.
And they're not. None of the guys who are on commentary at this point really do their job in that respect. I want to play you an older match just so that you can hear like Jim Ross call a match.
Sure.
Ideally, Jim Ross and Paul Heyman, who were the commentators for a while, but Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler from back in the day will be instructive for other reasons.
You know, one of my favorite small segue here, but one of my favorite features in an older, now defunct version of Virtua Fighter is that you could turn on match commentary, and two AI commentators would attempt to run commentary on the match, and we're falling asleep, but we're almost there.
Cool.
And like it was frequently, you know, very stupid. Oh God, damn it! I looked away at just the wrong moment.
What a nice car he has.
Sorry, bro. And now I'm braked on an uphill slope, and that rarely seems to go well. You see that? My lights are blinking on and off.
Yeah.
There we go. Nice. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. Like they were fun because they would say like, a nice dodge, a throw escape, big elbow, and you know, like it had the right cadence, even if what they were saying was rarely particularly enlightening. But the funny part was that when like one of them was clearly supposed to be someone who used to be in the ring, and the other was the commentator, and he would like, there were a few lines of advice at that after the first or second round he could attempt to dispense, like, I think you need to go more on the offense, and then the other one would go, yes, that's true.
Well, that's the typical vibe,
right?
Like that's even true of the commentary team in WrestleMania. One of those dudes was a wrestler.
Right. I could recognize the trope that they were going for. Yeah, that's like all over sports commentary.
Yeah, the color commentator and the play-by-play man are the classic duo. I don't know why there was a third dude there besides wearing a really impressive tuxedo.
I'm going through the red light because I am falling asleep.
Yep. 420 is your red light charge. So yeah, we were planning on talking about Hyperlight Drifter, but I guess we're going to talk about that next week.
Yep.
Because we had a lot to say about WrestleMania, it turns out.
Yep. Heck, will Hyperlight Drifter still be a timely topic next week? No, it won't. We'll see.
Well, whatever. I'm sure there'll be something new. Oh, you did the thing again, I see.
Enter. Excellent.
Yes, that was a great job.
Cheese delivered.
Maybe it was a great trucks. Maybe it wasn't. It's hard to tell.
Wrestling and video games. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about wrestling and video games.
We're such heterosexual men.
I never expected this. I never expected wrestling to be one of the major trucks topics.
Well, it probably won't be for a while now.
Yeah, I guess. But I hope you've enjoyed this period of time where we talked about wrestling. Maybe we'll continue talking about wrestling. Who knows? I don't. Do you know?
I think that we'll probably avoid it intentionally if I have anything to say about it.
Goodbye.